Hey guys, in this lesson we're going to be working with Amazon CloudWatch and we're going to create a custom metric and an alarm based on the custom metric. So firstly, I'll just show you very quickly around the CloudWatch console. So this is the console for Amazon CloudWatch. Now as you can see on the left we have dashboards, which we'll cover later on in this section. And then we've got alarms, logs, metrics, X-ray traces, events, application monitoring and insights. And we're going to go over all of these at some point within this section. So firstly, let's start with metrics because these are the key component of CloudWatch. You can go and see all metrics here. Now, if I just come up, because I've been previously filtering and looking at some metrics, so now I've cleared my view and this is what you should see. However, you might not see the same list of metrics, and that's because you might not have been running the same resources as I have. So what you see here in terms of the metrics that have been collected by CloudWatch is dependent on what you've actually been running in your account. So I've been running Lambda and EBS and EC2. I've been creating private link endpoints and network load balancers and so on. So I've got quite a lot going on. Now let's just have a look at EC2, for example. So if I click on EC2, we've got by auto scaling group and per instance. So these are the dimensions in which we can then drill in. So let's choose per instance metrics. And now I can see lots and lots of metrics. I've run quite a few instances in this account, so we've got lots of entries from different instances. If I choose one of these instance IDs, and I'm going to copy that and then place it into the filter here and hit enter, and now it's just going to filter the view so I can see only the metrics associated with one particular instance. And you can see the various different types of metrics which get collected. You can select them and then it's going to plot them on the chart above. So you can see we've got CPU usage, disk read and write, network, CPU utilization and so on. So these are the standard metrics that are collected by CloudWatch. Now what we want to do is we have some kind of custom metric that we want to collect for our instance. There's a couple of ways we can do that. One is by using the CloudWatch agent, which we're going to do a bit later on. But in this lesson, we're going to create a custom metric by using the put metric API. So that's metrics. There's also Explorer, which allows you to create tag-based views, and Streams, which uses Kinesis Data Firehose in order to stream CloudWatch metrics directly to your applications. Now, also we've got logs. We'll be covering logs later on as well. With logs, you can actually stream certain log events from your instances into the log groups here, and that data then gets collected. And we can see, for example, here, this is an Nginx website. So we've collected some information from the Nginx application. We're also going to use logs quite a few times in the course. Events are now moved over more to Amazon Event Bridge. So that's something we'll cover later on as well. All right, now let's see what we're going to do in this lesson. There is a file in the course download in the Amazon CloudWatch folder, and it's called Custom CloudWatch Metrics. And so we're going to use the CLI quite a lot again. And I want to make sure that you're very familiar with how to create the various resources in AWS using the CLI. I use the console in a lot of my courses. In this one, we want to make sure that we have that operational ability using the CLI. So the first thing to do is create an IAM role and an instance profile. The very first command creates a policy. That policy allows the put metric data API. So let's copy everything here from line 5, and we're going to run all these commands on Cloud Shell. So back in the console here, I've opened Cloud Shell. I'm going to paste in my command and create my policy. So now we've created a policy called CloudWatch put metric data. Next, we want to create an IAM role that uses the policy document. So now we're using the IAM create role API, and we're using role name, we're giving it CloudWatch role, and then we're assuming the role policy document. And so this is the trust policy. Okay, so here we've got the principal as being service EC2. So EC2 is going to be allowed to assume this role. So again, just paste that in and hit enter, and that's going to create the role with a trust policy. We still need to attach the policy to the role. So we've created the trust policy, but we need the permissions policy, and that's what we've got on line 9. This one is attaching the CloudWatch put metric data policy that we created in line 5. So again, I paste that in, press enter. Now, of course, I've made one mistake here, and that is simply that I did not update my account number. So there we go. I need to copy my account number from within one of these ARNs, come back in, and paste that in. And of course I do have a note there, so I've just skipped my own notes. So there you go, I've got the account number in. I think this time when I run it, it will work. And this time the policy document has been attached to my role. So my role is now ready for my EC2 instance to assume it. Of course, we don't have an instance profile yet, so we're going to create an instance profile. This one is called CloudWatch Instance Profile. With the instance profile, we can then attach the role, and then we'll be able to attach the instance profile and therefore the role when we launch our instance. So copy line 11. I'll clear my screen to make it easier for you to see. Press enter, and we've created an instance profile. The next thing we need to do here is attach the role to the instance profile. Again, just copy and paste the command, nothing needs to change. So now we've created a policy document, we've then created a role, and the role has a trust policy for EC2. We've attached our policy document to the role, and now we've added the role to an instance profile, which the EC2 instance can assume when it launches. So of course, now we want to launch our instance. Firstly, we need a security group. So I'm going to do that with the CLI command on line 17. That's done, and we've got a security group ID. Back in the file, we can copy the entire command on line 19. This is creating an ingress rule for our custom metric lab security group that we just created that allows port 22 inbound from any source address. Paste that in, and of course that's going to run and give me my security group ID. We can see we now have a security group. So we now have the role and the security group. Last thing to do is to launch an instance, and I'm going to do so into US East 1A. So of course we're using the Run Instances API. We need an image ID, so make sure you're using an up-to-date image ID. If I come back to EC2, I can always just go to Instances, Launch Instances, and copy the latest Amazon Linux 2 AMI ID. And these are of course region specific. The other thing I need to do is update my security group ID, because this is not the one I just created. Back in EC2, we can see we now have our running instance. And if I go across to security, we can see we've got the IAM role and we've got the security group. And the security group's allowing port 22, which is good because I want to use Instance Connect to actually connect and then run the rest of the commands from EC2 Instance Connect. So let's click on Connect, Connect again, and that's going to open the console on the EC2 instance. Back in the file, as it says here, make sure you run the remaining commands from the EC2 instance. Now the first thing we're going to do is install the Amazon Linux extras, because we want to install this stress utility. So you can just run that entire command, and that completed quickly, and then come back and run the command on line 27, and that's going to install the stress utility. And that is now complete. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a shell script that uses the put metric data API. So the first command will actually use nano to create this file, memusage.sh, and then we're going to add this code. So let's have a look at the code. What the code does is uses the put metric data CLI in US East 1. It's going to create a namespace custom memory, and then the metric name is memusage. The value is then created by this bit of code here. So it actually works out the utilization of the memory and assigns it to the memusage metric. It's also going to pull the instance ID of the instance using the metadata. So firstly, let's just open this file, and it's going to create the file as we do so. So make sure you're on Instance Connect on your EC2 instance, and then simply run the command. Then I'm going to copy all of this code, so from line 34 down to line 36, everything there. Come back and paste that in. And then I'm going to run Control X and then type Y to commit the save. We need to make this script executable because we're going to make it execute regularly using cron tab. So we're going to run chmod plus X to make it executable. Again, just run that command and that's completed. Then we're going to run cron tab -E, and we're going to add this line. When you've finished adding the line into cron tab, you have to type :WQ to save it. So I'm going to copy this line, come back, type cron tab -E, paste, then type :WQ, and you can see the WQ in the bottom left here. So make sure you've got your cursor, context, back in the text, then type WQ and you should see it appear. And then when you press enter, it's going to save that cron tab. And you can run cron tab -L to actually see that it's definitely there. Okay, we've set up our utility to run. So what's happening is cron tab is going to start running every 1 minute. Okay, so this command means that every 1 minute it's going to execute the memusage.sh script, and that script is going to send that metric data to AWS. Now, of course, for this to work, the EC2 instance does need permissions to write to CloudWatch, and that's what we allowed earlier through the put metric data API action that we allowed for the role. So the last thing to do is we want to actually generate a bit of stress, so we actually see some data coming in. We installed the stress utility before, and now we're simply going to run the stress utility on the command line. So run this again on your instance, and it's going to generate some load. We should now see the custom metrics coming in. So if we come back to CloudWatch, choose metrics, all metrics, I just need to come back out because I did some filtering, and now you can see we've got custom/memory. If I choose that, we've got name value, and then within there we've got the mem usage metric. And if we give it some time, we should see some data starting to appear as the script runs and sends that information to CloudWatch. And that can take a little while, so just make sure that the stress utility is still running, and then just give it 5 or 10 minutes, and you should find some data in CloudWatch. Now, something I'm going to do while this is happening is go to alarms. So find alarms, go to all alarms, and we're going to create an alarm for our metric. Choose select metric, choose custom memory, name value, and then select the mem usage metric and select again. Now what we're going to do is define a threshold. So whenever mem usage is, well, let's say is greater than 30. Click on next, choose create a new SNS topic. I'm going to keep this name, put in my email address, and then choose create topic. Then you can simply choose next, give it a name. Let's call this alarm mem usage, and choose next again. And at the moment we can see this is the value. So this is the threshold. Anything over 30 is going to generate an alert. So let's scroll down, choose create alarm. So now we have an alarm, and the default state is insufficient data, which is fine. Just means that AWS does not have enough information yet to determine the state of the alarm. So again, just give that a few minutes and we should see something happen. Now I'm going to open metrics in another tab just so I can see what's going on there as well. And I've changed my period to 1 minute. And now I can actually see some data coming through. Now you can see that the value is 54. So that's above my alarm. So what we should find soon is that our alarm is triggered. So we still don't have sufficient data yet. That's okay. Let's just wait a couple more minutes and we should find this coming through. Now, you'll also need to confirm your subscription if you want to receive the email. So head over to your email inbox and confirm the subscription. And then when the alarm does get triggered, you'll get the email notification. So I just gave it another minute or two, and we now see that the mem usage alarm is in the in alarm state. And I've received an email in my inbox to notify me of that. Of course, if I go back to metrics here, again, change that period back to 1 minute, and you can see that we're way above that threshold at about 52, 54. So that's it for this lesson. In this lesson, I showed you how to add custom metric data to CloudWatch from EC2 using the AWS CLI. Now, of course, another way of doing it is through the CloudWatch agent, and that's something we're going to cover in another lesson. For now, what you can do is simply go and terminate your EC2 instance, and that's the only chargeable resource. So everything else can be left, or you can go and clean up your role and your policy and your security group if you like as well.